Welcome to today's video, and in this one we'll be covering C# and .NET Framework version history. The .NET Framework was initially introduced in the year 2002 with .NET Framework 1.0. The .NET Framework 2.0 came into existence in the year 2005, and then in 2006 we had a .NET Framework 3.0. In 2010, that is after a period of 4 years, we had .NET Framework 4.0. Then in 2012 we had .NET Framework 4.5, and in 2016 we had .NET Core 1.0, we had .NET Framework 4.7 as well as .NET Core 2.0, and then in the year 2019 we had .NET Framework 4.8 and .NET Core 3.0. In the year 2020 we have migrated to .NET and the version was .NET 5. Then in the year 2021 we had .NET 6, and in 2022 we had .NET 7, and in the year 2023 .NET 8 is scheduled for release. Now let's quickly compare when the C# versions were introduced along with the .NET Framework timeline. So here you can see C# 1.0 was introduced in the same year when .NET Framework 1.0 came into existence, that's in 2002. Then C# 2.0 was introduced along with .NET Framework 2.0, and C# 3.0 came into existence with .NET Framework 2.0 Service Pack 1, and that was in the year 2008. C# 4.0 in the year 2010 along with .NET Framework 4.0. C# 5.0 in the year 2012 along with .NET Framework 4.5, and then 6.0 along with .NET Framework 4.6. Then C# had 7.0, 7.1 and 7.2 in the year 2017, and that was part of .NET Framework 4.7.1. Then C# 7.3 was part of .NET Framework 4.7.2, and in the year 2019 we had C# 8.0, and then with .NET 5, 6 and 7 we now have C# 9, 10 and 11 respectively. Now with .NET 8 we'll be having C# 12. Now let's quickly go and see what features were introduced in each of these versions of C#. C# 1.0 was the first version of C# as part of the .NET Framework. It inherited many features from Java such as classes, objects, inheritance and interfaces. Then 2.0 introduced generics, allowing for type-safe collections. It implemented anonymous methods, which were later replaced by lambda expressions in C# 3.0. It also added support for nullable value types. In C# 3.0, lambda expressions were introduced, which simplified the creation of anonymous methods. It also implemented automatic properties, which allowed for cleaner property declarations, added support for extension methods, which allowed for the addition of new methods to existing types. It also introduced query expressions, which provided a more readable syntax for LINQ queries. Then in C# 4.0, dynamic typing was introduced, which allowed for the creation of objects with properties and methods that could be added or modified at runtime. Implemented optional parameters for methods, which allowed for methods to be called with fewer arguments than specified in the method signature. It also added support for named arguments, which allowed for methods to be called with arguments in a different order than specified in the method signature. C# 5.0 introduced asynchronous programming, which allowed for the execution of long-running tasks without blocking the main thread of execution. It also implemented caller information attributes, which provided information about the caller of a method. In 6.0, we had auto property initializers, which allowed for the initialization of auto properties with default values. Implemented string interpolation, which provided a more readable syntax for string concatenation and formatting. Added support for exception filters, which allowed for the use of exception filters in catch blocks. C# 7.0 introduced pattern matching, which allowed for more expressive and concise code. It also implemented local functions, which allowed for the declaration of private methods within other methods. It also added support for tuple literals and tuple types. Then 7.1 introduced asynchronous main methods, which allowed for the use of the async keywords in the main method of a console application. Implemented default literal expressions, which allowed for the use of the default keyword as a literal expression. With version 7.2, non-trailing named arguments were introduced, which allowed for the use of named arguments in non-trailing positions. It also implemented private protected access modifiers, which provided more control over accessibility of class members. With 7.3, we had ref structs, which allowed for the creation of value types that are stack allocated and can be used with the ref keyword. Implemented read-only structs, which provided a way to enforce immutability for structs. Added support for ref returns and ref locals, which allowed for the use of ref keyword with returns and local variables. Then with C# 8.0, nullable reference types were introduced, which provided a way to annotate reference types with nullability information. It also implemented asynchronous streams, which allowed for the creation of asynchronous sequences of data, added support for using declarations, which provided a more concise syntax for using directives. Then with C# 9.0, we had init-only properties, which provided a way to create properties that can only be assigned to during object initialization. Implemented records, which provided a way to create immutable data types with built-in value equality. Added support for top-level programs, which allowed for the creation of simple console applications without the need for a class definition. Then in C# 10.0, we had global using directives, which provided a way to import namespaces for all files in a project. In C# 11, we had this global using directive, which allows importing namespaces for all files in a project. Implemented file scoped namespaces, which provided a more concise way to define namespaces for a single file. Added support for constant interpolated strings, which allow for the use of constants within interpolated strings. Introduced the caller argument expression attribute, which provides a way to capture the argument expression passed to a method. Now, C# 12, which is scheduled for release in the year 2023, we will be seeing following features like primary constructors, collection expressions, default lambda parameters, alias, anytype, inline arrays, and interceptors. So that was a brief of .NET Framework and C# version history and features.